What do you feel you have learned in the progression from your preliminary task to your full product? Preliminary task image progression. My college magazine had a short deadline, thus we didn't have enough time to do a photo shoot for the images. We chose a location of the library which I felt was appropriate to the genre of the magazine, which was educational. We used a Canon camera and took original images. However, when we chose an image and put it onto Photoshop, they became stretched and blurry, therefore the quality was considerably weak. Considering this was our first time on Photoshop and using original images, it went quite well and acted as practice. Yet I have made some improvements which is emphasised by the front cover of my magazine. This is my front cover which I use for my main task. I was able to organise a photo shoot this time, which I used bare equipment and outdoors to create natural lighting which was planned ahead. When I applied the image onto Photoshop, I ensured it wouldn't be stretched and edited to match my colour scheme. I was able to emphasise the model using a plain white background, which meant I had to use the lasso tool to cut it out, creating the focus on the artist. I used a professional Canon camera to ensure the image's quality was improved. I also utilised my planning on poses and facial expressions, which I felt I used the appropriate ones for my genre. Preliminary task, we didn't have much time to plan, therefore we used what we had. Since it was a college magazine with an educational genre, we decided to use the computers in the ILC. We didn't have time to decide on appropriate costumes, therefore we just used the casual clothing we were wearing. However, if we had planned it, we may have used clothing that looked good on camera and that would fit with our blue and white colour scheme. However, for my main task I had time to plan, therefore I decided to use a guitar as a prop. This is done conventionally on rock magazines to emphasise the genre, plus it looks good on camera and doesn't take too much attention away from the artists themselves. For my model, I decided on certain makeup and clothing. I used quite dark eyeliner and dark lipstick. This is done a lot on female in the rock genre. The costume I decided on was a denim jacket, a band t-shirt and jeans. This seemed quite casual and laid back. It looked good on camera and was able to achieve the look I was going for. For my college magazine, I felt the image was unprofessional. We were not looking at the camera and we hadn't had much experience at this point. The body language also appears very awkward and uncomfortable. However, on my music magazine, the body language looks more professional. You can tell I have planned a photo shoot due to the images. They are more natural and comfortable. Also, I edited the images with my experience to match with the colour scheme and to create a natural light. The I have used on my contents page for my preliminary task and for my main task are very different. It must be taken into account that they are for very different genres. However, my main task images are much better quality. This is because of the experience I have had in editing. I have ensured to boost the colour on my main task images. This is to match the colour scheme and also to create a bright atmosphere. This can create shadow and depth as well, which will draw the viewer in. Both images were consistent and related to the front cover. However, it's obvious there is more progress on my main contents page. On my preliminary task, I used fonts already given on Photoshop. Although they are for different audiences, my preliminary task font looks a lot less professional compared to my final product. For my final product, I learned you could download fonts from online. I used font.com in which I found the font Linkin Park, which I thought was perfect for the look I wanted to achieve. I utilised this font on all products to create consistency, which is conform to the typical magazine design. For my preliminary task, I only used one font. However, on my main task, I used a variety, making it more eye-catching to the audience. This is done conventionally on this sort of magazine. In both my preliminary task and main task, I use different size fonts to signify importance. For example, the masthead is the largest on both tasks. This is conform to the magazine's layout and draws attention to establish the magazine name. The next largest is the main cell line, because this is the main story you're aiming to draw attention to. As you can see, the fonts on my main task have improved considerably compared to my preliminary task. They've become more eye-catching and stand out to the audience. This proves I have an awareness of the conventions of a punk rock magazine. I have used very different colour schemes for each product I have created. This is to do with the genre. For the college magazine I use pale blue and white. This is because these colours are usually associated with a calm environment, which is what we want the college to be perceived as. However, looking back at these colours, these do not stand out, which is why I use different colours on my main task. My main task shows progression in colours because they are clear and bright, which makes it eye-catching for the target audience. The red, yellow and black are used conventionally on a rock punk magazine. This is because these colours can be associated with danger and rebellion, which match with the genre. My minimal colour scheme helps the colours to complement each other and to create a professional overall finish. Red mastheads are used on magazines such as NME to stand out, which is why I was inspired to do this.
However, I made it a gradual look so that my magazine was easily recognisable and also original.
On both the front cover of my college magazine and my music magazine front cover, I feel I've displayed a clear understanding of magazine conventions. I have also done this on the contents pages. The title is placed on the top side of the page. The image is placed in the centre. This is a focal point to draw the reader in through eye contact, and the mode of address is direct. The extra features are placed surrounding this image, and the barcode is at the bottom right of the page. This conforms to the magazine's layouts. For each of my contents pages, I have a main image which may appear central to the layout design on my preliminary contents page. The layout is simplistic. The information is on the left and the image is on the right. This may appear similar to my main task contents page layout. However, I made my main task more interesting by adding more images, creating a cluttered effect. This helps to fill space on the page. If I were to design and create a music magazine in the future, I feel I have learned a significant amount from my research and planning and my creative process. Also, from this music magazine, I have learned to use new technologies to help me in the whole production process. Now I feel I could produce a realistic magazine which was improved further.